Hey everybody, this is Miss Williams, and we are continuing our trend on factoring. This is Unit 1 still, Day 2. We're going to talk about other ways to factor. So, if we remember, last time we covered difference of two squares, factoring a trinomial with a equals 1, and factoring a trinomial when a does not equal 1. Today we're going to cover greatest common factor and sum and difference of two cubes. And then next time, we'll do factoring by grouping. All right, so why do we factor? There's two reasons we factor: to help us solve the equation and also to help us graph, because we're eventually going to start graphing these equations. All right, so once you factor an equation, the next step is to set each of the terms, each of your factors, equal to 0, and then you're able to solve easier equations than what you actually started with. Another reason to factor polynomials is to find out its roots or zeros. And if you recall, roots are really just what we mean when we say they cross the x-axis, or they're the x-intercepts. So when you factor an equation, you solve it, you find the roots of the function, and it can help you graph. All right, so that's just a preview. So if I'm going to factor using the greatest common factor, if we started with the equation x squared plus 3x, I can factor x squared as to x and x, and I can factor 3x into x times, or 3 times x. Both of these terms, and a term is anything separated by addition and subtraction signs, both of these terms have an x in it. So it's like one of my kids has 2 x's and the other one has a 3 and an x. And I always think about, what can I take from both kids? And I have to take the same thing from both kids to be fair. So I can take an x out of both kids. So the x on the outside of the parentheses is actually what I've taken from them. And then inside the parentheses is what they have left. The first kid would just have an x left, and the second kid wouldn't have any x's, but he would have a 3. Okay, now I have factored it. All right, so how can that help me to graph this equation? Well, if I set each factor equal to 0 and then solve, I would have x equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. When I solved them, the first factor is already solved, or the first equation is already solved, and the second one I would need to subtract 3 from both sides. So my zeros of my function, or when I solve my function, it would be x equals 0 and x equals negative 3. If you look over here at the graph to the right side, this graph is the graph of the equation x squared plus 3x. And as you can see, the graph goes through the graph, or the equation goes through the graph or through the origin, 0, 0, and it also has an x-intercept at negative 3. All right, so this is kind of a preview of what we're going to get into. This difference of two squares is what we did last time. You should have all this written in your notes. There's some more examples of difference of two squares, okay? But to take it a step further, you also have to know factoring sum and difference of two cubes. So instead of just doing squares this time, we have cubes. So it might be beneficial if you do what we did with the squareds and take the numbers, maybe just 1 through 10, and do perfect cubes. All right, those are a little harder to remember. Okay, but especially know 1 through 5, because a lot of those show up a lot of times. Okay, so this says x cubed plus 8. X cubed plus 8. So x is being cubed, and 8 is actually 2 that has been cubed. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. Therefore, it's just a matter of putting a everywhere I see it, or x everywhere I see an a, and 2 everywhere I see a b. So I'm using the top formula up here in green, and I'm just plugging in x and 2 everywhere I see a and b. All right, same would hold true if you subtracted, then you would use the second equation. And as you can see, these two equations are real similar. The only difference is the sign changes. All right, so the cubed root of 64, or 4 times 4 times 4, is all 64. So that's why I put x minus 4, and then x squared plus 2x plus 16. All right, because 4 squared is 16. Okay, you're going to have to make sure you take notes, and then you'll have some problems that are labeled as factoring day 2 on Schoology, and you are responsible for doing those after we get to class, either on Wednesday or Thursday. I'll see you then.